What's up, everybody? Solomon here. I am going to do a little bit of a deep dive today on ILP, Canada, what I believe Pay ID to represent, and I found an extremely interesting email back from 2015 with a bigwig from Citibank. What may be a governmental institution from Canada and a Ripple / W3C / ILP employee, etc., etc. You can get the gist of it. Real quick, the first 30 seconds. This is just to paint a little bit of scope here. How blockchain can lead the financial system into a new era. Finance magnates. It talks about chips a bit. Real-time settlement. One example is chips, a leading mover of international remittances in the U.S. that clears and settles $1.7 trillion of interbank payments in both cross-border and domestic settlement daily. It's a lot of money, but it can also be a lot of time via a process that could take up to 24 hours to complete and comes saddled with sizable fees as well. The time lag comes courtesy of each mainstream fiat currency having an independent cross-border payment settlement system. They don't talk. With international remittance only possible through multiple agency banks located in different countries. Fees are turning off bank customers in droves who are tired of paying up to 15% for incoming transfers. This is not to even mention that a lot of the times senders have no clue how much is actually going to get to the end destination. Nonsense. We're in 2020. It's nonsense. Later on in this article, generic news again, not part of the deep dive whatsoever. However, Ripple comes with a major caveat in the form of XRP, the native digital asset in Ripple's ledger system, that has proven to be a volatile currency, making banks wary of employing it outside of the current messaging technology. That is false across the board. Volatility is inherently due to the fact that we are still 9 years into this market. This is a new asset class. Volatility goes away when multiple upon multiple billions and trillions of dollars flows into digital assets, and it is going to happen, and it will. That's not being hypey. That's just fact. I'm not sitting here telling you that XRP is going to have a $5 trillion market cap, but blockchain 100% is going to get there. Digital assets will get there too. We know all the, obviously we can get into the fact that Xcurrent isn't even really in the portfolio at this point. It's more so ODL. Everything's rolled into one. Also RippleNet Cloud. If you're not aware of all of those different factors, you can just sit there and you can research it a little bit on your own. All right, let's get a little bit into this. I think a lot of this ties in with Pay ID. I think a lot of this ties in with interoperability. So just for a little bit of a background here, the clearinghouse back on May 26th, 2020, posted ISO 20022 in the travel rule. And if we look into what Pay ID is doing, provides end-to-end travel rule compliance solution for satisfying both FinCEN requirements and FATF requirements. Now, I looked and read a little bit through the clearinghouse as far as, and we obviously know that Ripple is a member of ISO 20022 now as well. Actually, the first DLT member for the that was brought into the ISO group. So I scrolled down here. It was one thing that was interesting to me was the minimum amount where the travel rule was actually enacted. I don't know if I'll be able to find it right now, but I believe it was like $3,000 USD for the travel rule to have to be put into place. Here we go. Fund transfers are subject to the travel rule if they are $3,000 or more. The transmitter and recipient are both non-regulated institutions, and they are conducted through chips, Fedwire, Swift, or book transfer. I just thought that was a little interesting sidebar here. Now, here's where we get into the deep dive, which is probably why most of you may be here in the first place. This is from the Business Payments Coalition. If you're not aware, the Business Payments Coalition, they're a gigantic organization, across the board, everywhere across the board. So this is from 2018. This is a June 11th, 2018 call. Ryan Gaylor. So basically, they have an agenda review with the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis opening the meeting. The Federal Reserve opens the meeting. Then Ripple presents. Then there's initiative updates. And then there's a forum updates. That's it. That is the all-encompassing agenda of the meeting. What I found interesting were exactly what they got into during this presentation here. And it's a great presentation by Ripple. It tells you how XRP moves, everything else, et cetera, et cetera. Here's what they get into at the end here. And this is where the deep dive kind of began. So you can see right down here, this is Ripple's presentation, right? They talk about XRapid, talk about global payment demand, the rise of, global banking reach decreases, Internet of Value, blah, blah, blah. We get it. We understand what Ripple does. Here's where Ripple's presentation looks to end to me. Actually, it does. Page 25. There we go. Now we've got e-invoice interoperability framework update. This is where I started getting a little bit interested in maybe finding some deep dive information here. I will put this link in here if you guys can find some more stuff. This is extremely interesting to me. I started looking into the interoperability e-invoicing frameworks, and I went into like some of the verbiage with like the Oasis SML and all this stuff. So this is just for scope. They're obviously continuing to go along this path here. This is 2019. I found it. This little email string here, linking value networks. We've got 3 individuals in this email chain here. We have Joseph Potvin, who looks to be a member of Canada Organization. We've got Dan Schutzer, who you will hear more about in a second, who is a bigwig at Citigroup, has also worked for the Department of the Navy. And we've got Adrian Hope Bale. If you don't know who Adrian Hope Bale is, head of Interledger at COIL, co-chair at W3C Web Payments, building the Internet of Value. Conversation from 2015. This is to provide you a little bit of information just as to how forward-thinking Ripple has been as far as connecting all of these institutions, the legacy tech and the new tech. They're not disrupting, they are removing friction. And by removing friction, they are going, in my opinion, to be extremely successful with what they're trying to accomplish here. This is an extremely interesting email chain. So on Thursday, May 7th, 2015 at 9:45 a.m., Dan Schutzer. Do we want to learn about Dan Schutzer? I will tell you who this dude is. I think Dan Schutzer is this guy right here. Vice President and Director of External Organizations, Standards and Advanced Technology at Citibank. Citibank has had multiple presentations about Ripple. Currently having responsibility for interfacing with external organizations and standards bodies, and for directing company-wide research. This includes coordinating research with business goals and priorities and keeping Citibank up to date with the latest technological advances. Let's get into this email. This is interesting. This is from Dan. You make a good point, but to address this concern, it requires more than just a technical solution. It requires some business innovation, but it can be addressed much in the same way that Square and PayPal helped in areas where the payee is too small and not creditworthy enough to directly accept credit card payments. Now here's from Adrian. This is from your local Ripple employee here, who is obviously a little bit more than local. In working on the manifesto and the architecture document, which I am interested to see, it occurred to me that we, or maybe it's just me, may be missing an essential feature in the payment agent model. If our payment agents are expected to talk to another to negotiate the terms of a payment, including the choice of a payment scheme, then what do we do when there is no common scheme between the participants? Let's get into that. Does the payment agent give up and say, sorry, Alice, you can't pay Bob, he only accepts Visa, Bitcoin and ACH, and you can only pay via MasterCard and XRP. Transaction aborted? Question mark. If so, then it seems that we aren't solving anything. Our vision for interconnected value networks falls flat if our payment agents can only facilitate a payment within existing closed networks, e.g. within networks that do not talk to each other. Would I be correct in saying we need to consider that in many scenarios there will be one or more intermediaries that quote-unquote bridge the two networks by being plugged into both? How do we fit these brokers / intermediaries into our architecture? Our architecture. This dude at Citibank, these huge organizations, our architecture to me implies This may be a little bit speculative here, but our architecture means that they are building an internet of value together. Everybody across the board. Interoperability across the board. Best use case across the board. I think that there are also payment agents of some sort who they do interface with. The sender, receiver, both. And how does the payment flow between Alice and Bob play out when this intermediary is required? Contractually, whatever the reason may be. At what point do their agents say, oh dear, we don't have a common payment scheme we can use? Let's call Fred to act as a broker between your MasterCard and my Visa accounts. I'd like to discuss this on the call today, as I think we need to figure it out and put it in the document. Adrian. 2015, ladies and gentlemen, that this conversation was happening. 2015. What just happened recently, and I think has a lot to do with what we're seeing, is building the internet of value. You need to be currency agnostic. It needs to accept whatever payment is the most efficient, or maybe not even not the most efficient. Maybe the only applicable payment method available is going to be utilized. What is PayID doing? They are doing the same exact thing right now. All of these institutions tied into PayID, it's all currency agnostic. You can use, it's basically you can use whatever you want to use, whatever is available to use, or whatever is the most efficient thing to use. I think this just goes to show how forward thinking, how far ahead the Ripple team has been at developing the internet of value, that we have no idea some of the things that have went on behind the scenes. This is a random email that I found from 2015. 2015. Imagine the emails or some of the discussions that have happened in 2018, 2019, as these CBDCs and CBDC initiatives have actually come about. How are these CBDCs going to talk to each other? How are they going to interoperate? Is it going to interoperate all through ILP? Are there going to be certain situations where XRP serves a purpose? Maybe in economies that aren't necessarily built into the system as well as they should be? I don't know. Things to think about. Not trying to speculate, not trying to be hypey, just trying to provide a little bit of insight and some facts to you guys. I think this was an extremely valuable email, I hope, that was found here. A little bit more info about Daniel Schutzer here. We already talked about him. This is PayID, an extension of Ripple strategy. Another question is whether it can succeed with such a close association with Ripple, or whether this could be its strength. The solution is inspired by Ripple's Interledger protocol and encourages the use of Ripple's Xspring SDK for developers. So ILP, I went into it a little bit last time, and they talk about right in the white paper of PayID that it is currency agnostic. Doesn't care if you use Lightning Network, XRP, Ethereum, ILP, whatever is the best situation for the best situation is going to be used. Doesn't matter. This Daniel Schutzer dude also looks to be at MIT. The Altman Company, when I looked into the Altman Company, it looked like they're I don't know if they're a part of Corporations Canada, or if Corporations Canada looks like it may be just a registration body for Canadian corporations, which is probably what I more so believe. All right, let's get into a little bit more. Daniel Schutzer, the dude from Citibank that is in that email chain with Adrian. Previous positions include Citigroup, Director and Senior Vice President, Technical Director at Naval Intelligence, Technical Director, Navy Command, Control and Communications. What's extremely, excuse me, what's extremely interesting with that, I don't know if you follow Kevin Cage. If not, he's a definite follow on Twitter and on YouTube. If you have not seen the video where they're basically talking about the Navy doing research on implanting RippleNet microchips into people, which is super tinfoil hatty, by the way. But the lady actually that was disclosing that information was a pretty legitimate source. So I have also seen similar things through the director of the Navy Naval Intelligence with Hashgraph and updating the grid utilizing Hedera Hashgraph. I do some of that stuff on my Patreon, but just a backdrop, there is some serious governmental stuff going on with all this. We see a Ripple submission to the Department of Finance Canada in 2015. We obviously see the W3C email, also from 2015. Very interesting. If you're not aware, Corey Johnson used to be a pretty bigwig member of Ripple. And that other gentleman there, this is Corey. This is Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada. Corey Johnson posts, this was back in like early 2018, late 2017, I think. I'll say it again, this matters. Hashtag XRP the standard. You legitimately can't make this stuff up. Bank of England and Monetary Authority of Singapore. We know that Bank of England is ILP. Bank of Canada, I believe, is ILP and RippleNet. Monetary Authority of Singapore, we know, is RippleNet. Project Stella. Look into Project Stella. Do a little bit of research there. Get into this. This is, I think, the HSBC thing that I found here. Oh, no, this is RBC. Okay. If you don't know what RBC is, this is Royal Bank of Canada. They're the largest bank in Canada. 16 million clients, 86,000 employees worldwide. After researching numerous shared ledger technology options, RBC settled on Ripple, a provider of global financial settlement and FX market-making software solutions. Ripple makes it possible for financial institutions to send and receive cross-currency payments more efficiently by connecting banks directly to each other via distributed financial technology. Because transactions are immutable and carried out in real time, 5 seconds, XRP also transmits in 5 seconds, just, coincidence, but Ripple can also help mitigate fraud, credit, FX, and counterparty risks. That goes again with the volatility thing. It's a complete nonsense. Let alone the market cap being a joke, but the speed alone inherently removes the volatility, which we've heard multiple times. Ripple and RBC are working on a limited production proof of concept now. As much promised as blockchain represents, it is crucial to validate its scalability, reliability, security, and performance for a large-scale deployment. I believe this was 2018, if I remember correctly. This is 2016. Okay, this is 2016. So again, we see the ILP emails going across in 2015. We see a proof of concept in 2016. We see central bank digital currencies come about late 2018, 2019. We know how slow these financial institutions move. What do you people think is going on right now? Do you think that all these proof of concepts are for naught, or they're for nothing? They're just there. So, Royal Bank of Canada. This is a presentation. In cloud we trust. Theme 3, in cloud we trust. Obviously, we know that Ripple just pretty much deployed their RippleNet cloud solution. This is another older presentation. But I believe, like we've seen in the past with Volante saying that they utilize XRP, we're going to see similar things with older presentations. This is June 26, 2018. Exhibit 68, cross-border transfer through Ripple using the XRP ledger. We see XRP directly in the center. USD Bank, Korean Bank, Japan, I think that's Brazil, Mexican, Japan. RippleNet with or without XRP offers transparency of Forex rates and fees. But we obviously know that instant settlement through XRP removes the Nostro and Vostro requirements. Why would they put XRP in the middle of their presentation if they weren't ever planning on utilizing XRP? It's nonsense. It's literally right there for you to see, people. It's unbelievable that people don't understand what's happening in the world right now. And it's such a hard pill for me to swallow. I've tried telling people so many times what's going on. Even if it's not XRP, I believe it's probably XRP, at least to a large portion of what's going to happen. I don't know if it's across the board. I personally don't believe XRP is the global one currency to rule them all. No, I believe personally, just so you're aware, XRP will be utilized in exotic markets where it's hard to get liquidity into those markets, where the connection points aren't there from the legacy systems. That's my personal belief. I think that that's why rails are consistently being built in those areas. And then I think once the liquidity gets built up and the volume's up and the market cap's up, and there's even less rhetoric that they can say against XRP for volatility, because the 5-second speed isn't enough. But now if there's a, X trillion speculative market cap, then there's no volatility. And then it's instant settlement across the board. Do you think that these central bank digital currencies are just going to inherently talk to each other? No, I can't. The amount of red tape that would be involved in that would be obscene, first off. And then in some situations, even like they were saying in the W3C paper here, it's just not going to make sense. Value networks need to interoperate for the best utility, the best use case to operate where it operates most efficiently. And the options are going to be there. It's right in front of all of our freaking eyes right now. If you're not aware, the W3C They basically run the internet. Ripple pretty much gifted Interledger protocol to the World Wide Web consortium. So this is all right here for you people. I mean, I'm trying to present this stuff. It's getting hard to find some of this stuff, but and present it in a way that makes sense, but it's still there. And I hope that this is a valuable presentation for you guys. I hope that you guys like the content. Feel free to follow if you want to. If you don't, I don't care. That's fine. I'm still going to present it anyways. I hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend. All right, later.